Hey, welcome to Break the Gate podcast. My name is Rod, and this is Chris, the founder. And today we have the founder and executive producer at Berger Joint, former branded content producer at Rolling Stone, and former digital producer at Comedy Central. You could kind of call him the Switch Army knife of production. That being said, this is Mike Henneberger.
Hey
Um,
guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, did he practice that for like solid 10 minutes?
for real,
He
I was
had
freaking
different
out.
That was a
things.
lot. No, I
Yeah.
appreciate it. No,
Hey,
I know. I've bounced around and done a lot too. I interviewed Vinny Caruana once, and he's in so many bands that he
hmm
had to like list all these bands. I kind of feel the same way. Like when you started that introduction, I was like, oh, I wonder
Yeah.
what he's gonna introduce me as. My daughter was just trying to walk up on me. Sorry.
Yeah,
amazing.
that's okay.
If
It's
she wants
clean.
to join, we can totally
Yeah.
interview her as well.
No, no, it's all good. I was locked in my room, but my wife just stepped in. All good.
Okay.
Awesome. So, Mike, can you tell us a little bit about what your titles mean and how you got into the industry?
Yeah, so I'm 40 now, and I I'll try to make it fast. I started playing in bands when I was 14. So like
Killer.
14 to 21, I played in bands. I was the lead singer. I suck at all instruments, even though I try. So like I can't start my own band because I'm just a singer, really. So once I stopped playing in bands, I started. My brother and I started a magazine at our college and started a TV show there where we would interview bands because we grew up like 4 hours from Austin and just so far away from any music scene that we wanted to expose, the punk and emo and like indie rock we were listening to this area of South Texas that knew nothing about it. And so I became a music journalist. It, yeah, that was like 2002. And then I just did it. I still do it. 20 years later, I still interview bands for different things and became a concert photographer and then got really depressed and directionless and joined the army, which I don't suggest to anybody to do for
Yeah,
that reason
been there.
Yeah,
because it's not going to help. Yeah.
I was just about
Yeah.
to say you heard
Um,
that.
Yeah.
were you in the military, Chris?
I was, yeah. I
Oh,
uh
what
I
branch?
worked on Army. I worked on HIMARS,
Oh,
the
okay.
multiple launch rocket system. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
deployed out the Middle East in 2017.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I signed up as a combat photographer and videographer because I was already
Wow.
doing those things and wanted to get deployed and
hmm
get that experience. I could come back and turn it into something here.
hmm
But just really had a bad time at it and got medically discharged after a year,
Yeah.
um,
That's a
and
rough
didn't get
gig
deployed.
too.
Yeah,
To be able to
um,
have that job in the military. It's
yeah.
rough.
Well, it's funny when I was going to MEPS. For those who don't know, is where you like when you enlist in the military, they go and they do your weight and test you to see if you're can like physically join.
hmm
Um, and I had to go on a 2 hour van ride there, and this guy was re-enlisting, and he asked me what I was joining as, and I said, "Oh, I'm joining as a combat photographer," and he goes, "Isn't that a chick job?"
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
Yeah. Well,
I've, I've,
there were some females in it, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I didn't really care. That's kind of been my life, though. I'm not the
I
most
don't think there's a
masculine of men,
gender for
so
that job.
yeah, for real.
yeah.
It's not an easy job
Um,
because you're like involved in all of the post war photography too.
yeah,
All of the
yeah,
aftermath of stuff, and
That's
it's
the component I'm just breaking down, just like
yeah,
what you have to see and how you have to keep the fourth wall still there
yeah,
as you're dealing
yeah,
with the traumas of the war. Jesus Christ.
yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
That's
sorry, we didn't
And I
mean to
didn't.
interrupt you.
No, it's all right. It's all right. Yeah, and I didn't really, experience that. But what I did come out of that experience with was this, like, the way that it changed my life was, I joined at 25, and so I saw these 18-year-old kids who had never stood up for themselves,
hmm
went from fearing your teachers and principals and parents into fearing drill sergeants and, um, your like superiors that you like seeing how hard it was for them. And so seeing how bad mental health is in the military.
hmm
And as somebody who was doing concert photography and music journalism before, I struggled with depression and anxiety in there. And I always thought if I just had the same freedom to just like go to concerts like I used to and experience that community, then I would feel better. And so I came out kind of wanting to help people in the military through music and the music industry. So as soon as I got out, I went back to college and I had 2 years left. I got an internship at Comedy Central with the Daily Show and the Colbert Report digital team.
Awesome.
They hired me as soon as I got out of school, which was 6 months later. So I worked at Comedy Central for 2 years and handled digital media and social media for Workaholics, Tosh.0, some Key and Peele sometimes, and all their specials like the roast of James Franco and a thing called Night of Too Many Stars. And so I was there for 2 years. And then when I got laid off there and got into like video production, which I was already doing and partially doing at like I got to do some of that stuff at Comedy Central for digital stuff. And so I got hired at Vice as a video producer for a couple of months, like as a freelance video producer. And then I got hired at Rolling Stone and was a video producer at Billboard magazine. I was there for a year and kind of did all their branded content videos. Got to travel around the country, do shoots at like Coachella and South by Southwest and stuff like that. And so through all those jobs, I always worked with like different brands. So like if Choco Taco wanted to partner with Workaholics, I was the guy they'd talk to because I represented Workaholics online year round. And so nobody knew the brand better than I did, except like the guys who write on the show, you know? So I started doing branded content at Comedy Central, which led me to do that kind of stuff at Vice. And so when Vice launched their TV channel, Viceland, they wanted to make commercials that felt like Vice videos so people wouldn't fast forward through commercials. So that was their pitch to all the sponsors, you know, like spend your money with us because people are going to watch your commercials, whereas every other channel, they just fast forward through them. And so I worked there when they were launching Viceland and helped produce some of those commercials. And so it was the same thing, you know, it's like, if you want to partner with Workaholics, you want to make sure that your like commercial or your branded content is speaking their language. So their audience, so it resonates with their audience. And that was the same thing Vice was trying to do. And then when I went to Billboard, I supervised, produced that stuff there. So we're doing stuff for like Sour Patch Kids, and you don't want it to feel cheesy and like lame. You want it to feel like as cool as Billboard is, which you know, I don't know how cool that is, but so I just did that for, you know, years and years. Like my jobs just kept ending up being in that advertising realm also, but through cool things that I liked, like comedy or music or like, you know, Vice and their weird style of journalism.
Hey, did you have anything to do with Vice's Guide to Travel? And do you guys know anything about that?
No.
Man, they go to like Liberia during like in war zones, which was absolutely insane. Like Vice's Guide to Travel, I was like, I think 18 or 19 when they came out, and it was nuts. So if you haven't seen that, there's like, I'm old. So that was like 15 or 14 years ago, I think.
Yeah. I was there in like 2015, I think, or 2016.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So you were probably still in the military when he was talking.
Oh yeah, my bad.
Probably, yeah. But yeah, so I'm trying to think. Then from Vice, I went to Billboard, and then got laid off from Billboard and just started my own production company, Berger Media, or a Berger Joint, where I kind of just, you know, do the same thing. Like I learned from working at all those companies how to partner with brands, how to offer like, you know, cool ideas to brands and pitch them on ideas, and was just able to do it on my own for a couple of years. And yeah, have just been like now for the last like 8 months, I've been running a production studio for a creative agency here called Forsman and Bodenfors. They do stuff for like Crocs, Seagrams, Baileys, let me see. There's a car company called Polestar that's an electric car company that we do stuff for. So I run the production studio there, so we do like video production and post production on stuff. But it's still the same thing. It's video production in the advertising world, and at a creative agency where we kind of come up with the ideas for brands.
Okay. What are some of the key differences between working for yourself and working for somebody else in the production setting?
Can I curse on this?
For
Please.
Sure.
Okay.
For sure.
So what I always say is like the best thing about working for yourself is you can tell a client to fuck off if you want to.
Nice.
Because I had like, it doesn't change anywhere, man. Like anytime you work for a client, and I think across any industry, like they treat you like they act like they can treat you like shit because they're paying you and you're working for them. Well, if it's your own company, you can tell them to fuck off. And I haven't had to use those words, but I at least like I had clients which I still have my own independent production company. And I've had clients where like I've made it explicitly clear, like, I don't care what you think. Like, if you're going to talk to me or my crew this way, like, here's all your shit. You cannot pay me the rest of the money you owe me. And I cannot finish this work, and I'm fine with that. But if we're going to continue doing this, then you need to like change the way you're talking to me. You know, like I can do that. Whereas like if I'm working for a company, you know, I'll go tell my boss, like, it's getting to this point and I'm going to have to tell them this, or we need to figure out, you know, how to get them to chill out. But it's a lot of, you know, you have all the corporate politics and stuff. Which like, you know, I've always been somebody who just like, because I grew up in like the punk scene, you know, and me and my brother starting our own magazine, so we didn't have to deal with that shit. Like my first decade of working in journalism and video was me and my brother doing our own thing. And so like we didn't have to put up with shit. And then, you know, moving on into the corporate world, even Comedy Central, Rolling Stone, like those are as corporate as anything else. Like people might not think, like they might think, oh, Rolling Stone, that's fucking cool. Like based off of, you know, what we've seen in pop culture, but it's as corporate as anything else. And like, you gotta, you know, they gotta get their numbers and they gotta keep their audience and they gotta, you know, they gotta bend to clients too, you know?
Exactly.
It's so
I felt the same way when I used to work for Disney. Because, you know, everybody was like, oh, you work for Disney? That must be so cool. And no. It was very corporate.
Yeah.
You talked about like the punk rock world, and that's kind of what got me into the music. What kept you wanting to go into like other industries instead of just staying with music? So like, did you find yourself with just like offers where they like gave you more freedom, or was it like financial stability? Like, how did you find your path into like the more corporate world versus the traditional like punk rock world?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because like I really had to figure it all out for myself. You know, I grew up in a kind of shitty small town where like people didn't go to New York and LA and achieve cool things or work in cool places. At least not that I knew of, you know? And I mean, it was a really small town, so you would know if somebody did. Like I know like the one or two people who did back then, but you didn't really have guides to do it. So, I mean, first of all, it was me not being able to play guitar well. Like if I could play guitar well, I would have kept doing music, you know? Like if I was a guitarist, I would have written my own songs and kept playing, because those 7 years I did that, like I took my first band on 3 national tours, like me booking all the tours, me, you know, managing the bands. My second band, we were together for like nine months, and I got us on the 3 Texas Warped Tour dates. And we played the first one on the same stage as like, Under Oath. Like it was like the third, like they had the 2 main stages and then they had the next big stage, and one of those bands couldn't make it. So no, it was called the Maurice stage. It was 2003, but it was like the 2 main stages and then the next biggest stage under the main stage. And it was in San Antonio, Texas.
What kind of music were you playing?
we were like this was 2003, so it was like kind of Thursday influenced, not screamo because I was
Yes.
singing, but our
Yes.
guitarist would scream here and there.
Hmm.
Very influenced. He always said he ripped off Cursive with guitar riffs, and
Amazing.
but yeah, we listened to a lot of Thursday and kind of that Census Fail kind of screaming, singing, screaming emo.
Hmm.
My old drummer is the drummer of Census Fail, Steve
Oh,
Carey.
nice.
Oh yeah,
That's
So
cool.
wow,
yeah, kind of nuts.
cool.
So
That's really cool.
That's funny. Buddy from Census Fail, he had a podcast for a while. I don't know if he still does, but he emailed me, or he didn't email me. He interviewed me on his podcast, and it
awesome.
was like a 3-hour conversation.
Really?
And then he never put it up. And so like I don't know what I'm so like lost and clueless about like why it didn't go up, because like we had a really great conversation about like religion and mental health and like all kinds of stuff, and like really hit it off.
Love to do something like that. You know, we're trying to keep this short form because an hour, 45 minutes to an hour is still quite a bit for most people, and we wanted to make sure that it was short enough to introduce people to listening to podcasts, but not too short to where you feel like you weren't getting a value out of
For
it.
sure.
But I would love to do a 3-hour podcast where we just shoot the shit,
No,
Hey.
I know that he edits them too. Because like his other episodes they're not 3 hours, but
Sure.
like I don't know if it was just too hard to edit or what. But then like I was working with the publicist at the time because it was when I released my book, and they represented Census Fail too, so they had a direct line to him. And I was like, "Can you find out why this didn't go up?" And they were never able to find out why it didn't go up. This is 3 years ago or so.
Hey, you talked about something that I guess we have yet to talk about. Religion in your field and
good call.
Aspects like that. So like the other aspect of like being your own owner, like if you feel like something is homophobic, sexist, like anything that's like, on that realm, you can tell them to completely go fuck themselves. But do you ever feel like have you had to work with like religious organizations and like things like Scientology and like, where that goes?
No, and I don't. I'm trying to think if I don't think so. And I think it's because I've worked pretty much at pretty liberal organizations, like Vice and Rolling Stone and Billboard, and so like, but also I'll mention this. My first band that I played in for 5 years was a Christian ska band.
We were just talking about ska. Yeah. We were just talking about ska.
Yeah.
What's the era too? 2003 to 2007.
Yeah,
there was a lot of Christian bands.
Well, and that band was 97 to 2001. I was 14 to 20. I went on my first tour at 17. I turned 18 on tour. But that was that period of time where like Christian punk and ska were actually like doing they were like huge. But yeah, towards the end of the years of that band, we were like really influenced by like Saves the Day and Newfound Glory coming out, and
for sure,
and Thursday too. Like we just, I'll send you some videos. They're on my Facebook of our final show ever, and we didn't sound like a ska band at all. It was like trying to be Saves the Day with horns, and like it was crazy. Cool. It was very good. And I always say that like if I had social media back then, like Facebook and Instagram, I'd be a rock star because I was so good at like marketing and managing the band, and our music was good. And we were playing at like regular bars with like regular bands and stuff. We weren't like super preachy or, only playing churches or anything like that.
That's interesting. But, so you were playing at bars when you were under 18 on a regular basis?
Yeah, you could easily do that. I'm from Rockford, and there are a lot of
in Austin and San Antonio we could do that, but in Corpus Christi, that's where Selena's from, and I grew up like 45 minutes outside of that.
Okay.
My second band was from Corpus Christi, and I was the youngest person in my first band, the oldest person in my second band, and we had a bass player who was under 18, and he couldn't play at a bar in Corpus Christi with us, so we had to like, I don't remember what we did, but I think one of the guitarists might have played bass. But there are some places that like won't let that happen. But like Austin and San Antonio didn't have an issue with that.
Okay.
Bringing up Christian rock bands, now I need to listen to Emery. Do you know them?
Yeah.
I haven't listened to that band in forever.
I think I have one of their shirts somewhere in my closet.
Yeah.
Freaking amazing.
I went to Furnace Fest that first year that it came back, and they were there.
That's
yeah, no, they're a good band.
We're going to have Johnny Grimes on next from Furnace Fest.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Right after you.
Yeah. No, he's great. Yeah. No, I had a booth at Furnace Fest, the first time they came back. And me and like all my boys from our old Christian rock days, like my best friend's dad ran a Christian rock club. All these guys, like 8 of us, went to Furnace Fest together, and we were all in different bands that played together back then. I just had like the best time. And Johnny was super helpful with me because I had a booth there for my book and a charity that I started called Zero Platoon.
Okay.
That's cool. It was a cool festival.
What about Cornerstone? Did you guys ever do that?
Cornerstone?
I think that it needs to. It was the Bonnaroo or Lollapalooza of Christian music.
I feel like I'm normally in the know of these, but you've just been hitting.
That's where
lows.
The Devil Wears Prada got massive because of Cornerstone.
Oh, really?
So I went to 05 and almost died. I went there with no water.
Oh my
god! Had a friggin' heat stroke because you're just like underneath this pounding sun.
Yeah.
And like you just everyone played it. Everyone, like you would see like Under Oath there from
MXPX.
first to last. Like dude, it was awesome.
Cool. I never got to go. I was too poor to go growing up, but and too young to know that I could just like hop in a car and just like sleep on the ground or something. But like there's probably like poor ways to do it.
Sure.
But and I was in South Texas, and it was just like too far away from anything.
Yeah, definitely a hike for you. You would have been used to the heat though, so
right.
Yeah.
So we'll go back into some more of the job related questions. No, it's okay.
Yeah,
you're good.
So no, you were asking about like religion and in my work and stuff like that, and I think I've just kind of dodged it because of the liberal places I've worked at. You don't get a lot of that. And I mean, the industry, like production, video production, and advertising and marketing, I mean, it's all pretty liberal. So, I mean, the companies I've worked at have been very conscious of equal rights and, taking care of making sure that like everybody's treated, equally. And the company that I work for now, in fact, has like a designation as one of the only creative agencies in the world where we have achieved equal pay for men and women.
Wow, that's awesome.
Who work at our company. And so, the company I work at is really great. They're based out of Sweden, but they're like all over the world. And so they're super conscious of like all that stuff. And that makes it feel really good to work at a place like that.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, so we've talked a lot about like music and things of that component. And I saw the digital aspect of it. Nowadays, I feel like so much stuff kind of sucks. Like you don't have to be really good to be seen. In your world, is that directly affecting you? Because like this TikTok editing where like all of a sudden they're just jarring cuts and things of that nature. Like people are just kind of doing absurd things, but it's catching the eye. Has that changed your industry at all? And has the realm of good marketing changed?
That's a good question.
Here's the thing. Like, so I've been in the like corporate side of this world, of the creative world, for a decade now. And when I was at Comedy Central, like everyone was going all in to Vine. Like how many Vine superstars, like just
Chelsea Lynn,
like lives were ruined when Vine disappeared. So sure. Like because they weren't prepared for Vine to ever disappear.
Right.
And then like when I was at Billboard, they were spending so much money to get in on Snapchat TV or whatever Snapchat did, where they were making their own series on Snapchat.
I forgot about that.
Wasted so much money on making pilots for that. And like nobody really cares about Snapchat, like TV or whatever they call it, And then like Instagram had IGTV. Facebook was trying to make, original series for Facebook. And so like, the thing is like anybody who goes all in on TikTok right now is risking that happening. So the reason I got hired at Comedy Central was because at Comedy Central Digital is because I was a good writer, had writing experience. I was a photographer who had like really good photography portfolio. I could edit video. I could shoot video. You know, I knew how to do all these things because I learned early that if you want to be competitive and last long in this industry, you have to keep learning and have to keep up with you have to be like equipped to keep up with the changes.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I like people are super worried about AI right now. So it's like I have to learn how to use AI to my advantage.
For
you
sure.
know?
Mm-hmm.
I guess not necessarily the network, but just like the styling of edits. So I do videography and photography as well. Not to your level by no means, but I've been watching some like YouTube stuff, and some people's edits are so like abrupt, and like it's just like this mean style of editing has become like the forefront for comedy, or the forefront to like get people's eyes attracted to whatever the content is. In your world, is that directly affecting you? Like, do you have to do faster edits to get to the meat and potatoes?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't personally do our editing. I can edit video, but I would never I would never get a job as a professional editor because I'm not that good. Like I'm not that level of editing, but I can edit stuff if I need to edit it, interviews and like certain things. So it doesn't personally affect me except that like I hire the people who edit, and we have a staff editor at the company I work at now. And so, yeah, I mean, when you're working with clients, they're all on top of like what's trending and what's hot and how kids want to see their shit. And so they're like, I want it to look like a TikTok. And like, but there's all kinds of TikToks too. And I follow, people on Instagram that tell stories in very different ways. And, I like that. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's going to be something everybody in the creative industry is going to have to keep up with, but there's always something new. And I've always believed that if you're telling a good story, then it doesn't matter like what format you're telling it in. Because I mean, people binge 10 hours of a TV show, in one day, and that's long form. So like, but you're right. I mean, every client comes to us saying they want the latest and hottest trend, and everybody just forgets that like people will still watch 3-hour movies, and people will still watch, like if it's good and keeps people interested, then it's good and it keeps people interested.
The pacing.
I guess I never took that in consideration. You see way more mini series nowadays, and like people are willing to watch an hour and a half. So like it's not. I guess I'm a little jaded. I'm like that old man that's like, the kids are ruining. They don't have the attention. But yeah, I guess that's a really good perspective. So in your world of marketing and looking at things, what's inspiring you? Like, how do you keep motivated to do what you do? And what was the first thing that you did where you're like, dude, that was awesome. That right there was such a good idea. It was executed. Fuck yeah.
Yeah. I did a music video. The thing that always stands out for me is in 2012, I did a music video for a band called Have Mercy. Have you heard of them?
Yeah.
They were on Hopeless Records.
Yeah.
But they're friends of mine. I met them before they were on Hopeless. They were on Top Shelf, and met them in New York once, and they did like an interview for the charity thing that I do. And I just became friends with them and would go out on the road with them. And they asked me to make a video for them, and I had $3,000 from Hopeless Records, and I just had this idea that like I just played the song. When they gave me the song, I just played it over and over and over, flying home from tour, taking the bus to work in the morning, like from the airport, and then all day. And I was like, I have the idea. And I made it for $3,000 in 3 cities: Babylon, Long Island, Brooklyn, and Baltimore in 3 days.
Wow.
And I still watch it 10 years later. and it still makes me cry, and it still makes me so proud. And I read the comments, and it makes everybody else cry, and that makes me proud.
Yeah. What song is it?
It's called Howl.
Okay, we'll have to check it out.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's on YouTube. But I'm so proud of that because it's the first thing I directed, and I wasn't confident enough, so I brought a buddy of mine in to co-direct. But I wrote it, and I like cast it and produced it and everything, and I just like I didn't have any experience doing something like that on my own. But yeah, so I'm super proud of that. But since then, just like the different achievements of working at Rolling Stone, which was a dream of mine, and you know the cool stuff. I got to work at Billboard and go to the Grammys and do like stuff around the Grammys and Coachella, like those kinds of achievements. But the biggest thing and coolest thing I think I've ever done is I wrote this book called Rock Bottom at the Renaissance, an emo kid's journey through falling in and out of love in and with New York City. But I made an audiobook version of it because there's a song that goes with every chapter. And
that's cool.
The song is not like a soundtrack. It's actually, the songs actually play a part in the story. So I listened to your episode with Jenny, who does the music supervising stuff, because that's cool. Like a dream job of mine.
Oh, okay.
For sure.
And I music supervised this audiobook. There's 20 songs on it, from Jimmy Eat World, Death Cab for Cutie, Dashboard Confessional, Bayside, Dangerous Summer, Wonder Years, Mayday Parade, Bright Eyes, Lisa Loeb. And so like I had to like reach out to all the publishers, all the labels, all the bands, get clearance to use. I had no money. So, and I was donating 50% of my royalties to mental health charities. So I'm asking them to let me use their music for free, and they all did.
Wow.
Fucking awesome.
For 2 years, which means cool. I need to renew that agreement now. Because it's coming up on the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the coolest thing I've ever done. Like if you listen to it, you feel like you're in the story because like the music is like part of the story. And so as you go through it in the book, the physical book, you'll be like reading a paragraph, but then in italics, it'll have lyrics from the song. So the song like pops up then throughout the chapter. Awesome. But in the book, the actual song is there. It plays. And so that was one of the biggest, coolest things. It is the biggest, coolest thing I've ever done. And Tyler Posey, who's an actor, who's the star of Teen Wolf on MTV, he read the audiobook.
Okay.
Also for free because he's an emo kid, pop punk kid,
right.
And has been open about his mental health stuff and addiction stuff. So yeah, no, it's a very cool project that I'm super proud of, and I hope I don't know how much longer it'll be available, but it'll be available. I'm gonna
go find it after this.
For sure.
Yeah.
I thought I sent you I meant to send you a promo code. I thought I did.
Maybe you did. I'll look.
But I'll send you guys a couple promo codes because I've got a bunch. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's been awesome, like across the board, because you see that is just the fact that one, you're a genuine dude. Like you're talking about like mental health. You're talking about all these aspects and like starting off with your brother. And when we look at like breaking the gate, so far the one singular thing that I see is that your network is the most important thing that you have. The things that like the people you start up with and grow with are like that's the pivotal like difference between being successful and not. And that's been across every interview that we've done thus far. Everyone talks about like I did this punk rock like promotion with my brother, like magazine with my brother, and now I'm working for like I did Rolling Stone and Billboard, and that's fucking awesome to see. That it's like, thank you for getting me on this podcast because that is uniform across the board.
I mean, I think the key thing is just having the resilience to do it, to like go after it all. Because I'll tell you, like I won an Emmy when I was at Comedy Central, and then I got laid off from Comedy Central and didn't have a job, and I stocked groceries at a bodega, like a couple blocks from my apartment here in New York for like 5 months.
Yeah.
like through Christmas where I had to like saw Christmas trees and get Christmas tree sap all over my hands and like deliver Christmas trees to people. But I was like waking up at 5 a.m. to stock vitamins and shit in this like little small market in my neighborhood because I needed a job, you know, and I had a fucking Emmy, you know, so it's like,
dude, this
it's like,
industry will chew you up and spit you out, but it also make your dreams come true.
Yeah. And I mean, I worked at Inked magazine for a while, which I always like forget. And I almost never say that when I list my jobs because I've forgotten it because I was there for a few months and it was just like such a shitty job with like shitty bosses. And they hired me under one like pretense and then told me like they hired me to like run their like digital side because this was after Comedy Central and like build up their digital presence. But then when I got there, it was like, before you do anything, I need you to write 5 blogs about tattoos. And if there's any celebrity story about tattoos, you got to write that for our blog first. And I was like, this isn't what I signed up for. And I went to like actually talk to them. I pulled the 2 top guys into an office and I was like, hey, you know, this isn't what you guys told me the job was going to be. And I was like, I don't really want to stick around if that's it. And they were like, okay. And so I just had to, you know, not that I wasn't bluffing because I was super unhappy there, but like, had I been bluffing, you got to have the balls to like follow through. You know, you got to know your value, but also, you know, sometimes you might have to work at a bodega. Sometimes you might. I worked as a security guard after Billboard for a little bit, you know, while I was, you know, getting my shit together with my company. Like, if it's important to you, you got to know it's going to be hard, and got to be willing to deal with that and put up with it.
So back to the roles a little bit. I know we're kind of doing a 360 here. For the people who don't understand what the different roles are in production, video production or digital, could you go into some of the more widely known ones and what their roles are?
Sure. So like my role at Vice and Billboard and Rolling Stone was a producer. And unfortunately, I can't really help you here because I tell everybody a producer is the person who does everything that there's not anyone else to do. So like if you're working on a low budget, this is why like Hollywood producers are like fat cats with lots of money and like don't really like the whole joke is that they don't really do anything. They kind of just like say some like bullshit so they can act like they have, you know, saying something. Because they have money and big budgets where there are other people to do everything. Most of my experience has been on low budget stuff where I don't have a casting agent, which means the producer has to cast. I don't have a location scout, which means the producer has to location scout and get permits. I don't have like a gaffer, so the producer has to help get lights set up on set while, you know, you and the production assistants. Like when you do everything that there's no one else to do there because a director is just there to direct. A sound mixer is just there to do sound. A cinematographer is just there to do cinematography. All those other little things, if you can't afford those in your budget, the producer is doing them. And that's what I've always been. I also direct and I also shoot. But the ways that I've been able to do that is on stuff I'm producing, you know, so I've been able to get that experience. Now I'm the director of the production studio. So I'm still kind of in that role. I just have bigger budgets to work with. So now I, you know, do a lot more delegating of like hiring the people who do stuff and, you know, finding new business, getting new clients, explaining to like the creative people, like the creatives in the agency who like do the writing and come up with the ideas, explaining to them what's feasible in video for what their budgets are. And what the schedules of those shoots and stuff should be like. So yeah, that's kind of my role now. I mean, you know, you have your directors who are on the set to make sure that like they really bring the vision to a shoot. And I mean, I think people are probably pretty familiar with what directors do, but yeah, I think the most the most like unclear role in a production environment is a producer because producers have to do whatever needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. And we were talking about that. We had Jamie Beebe on, who is a casting director, with different roles in that, and the producer, because she mentioned there is also an option for actors to be executive producers, as a way to kind of get a back end deal, similar to how the music industry works with booking bands, so there's and when you watch your TV show, your movies, the producer, director, executive producer, always
What's
first.
the difference between an executive producer and a producer?
That's a good question too. I think it depends, right?
Again, like
just a title.
I think I think executive producer, in the world of film and TV, like they really do, like not just any actor will get that role. Like Bryan Cranston on Breaking Bad will be an executive producer, and after a certain number of seasons, the smaller actors will probably be executive producers. But they get to call shots. Like they're in a position that's high, and like that's the highest level of producer in TV and film, I would say. And so they get to call the shots, and that's why like actors at a certain level can do that, because they'll help. When you give an actor a producer credit, it's because they're helping you also with like certain resources. Like maybe they're friends with Robert De Niro, and you're never going to get Robert De Niro on your thing, but they'll talk to him for you for an executive producer credit, and then they'll get a bigger cut in the back end, but they also can say like no on stuff. They can say like, no, I'm not going to do that, like on certain things, because if you're like just the actor on something, then you can't really say like, I'm not going to do that without quitting or getting fired.
They set tones, basically. They're able to kind of help guide the project. So that's I never knew that.
Yeah.
Is there like director, executive producer, actors, is there like a hierarchy for this? Like obviously they all have to work symbiotic, but like who's manning the ship?
Yeah. So if you're like in that world, you hear that like film is a director's medium, because directors really like call the shots, make the vision happen on a movie. And TV is a writer's medium, I think is what they say. Because like if you watch TV shows and pay close enough attention, at least on like traditional TV, every episode will have a different director. One of the shows I'm watching right now is Dave, and they have different directors on every episode. A lot of the same directors come back and stuff. But then, like Workaholics, like Kyle Newacek, who played Carl, the drug dealer, he directed almost all the episodes, but he's part of the original crew. But on a typical TV show, it's not a director's medium, because you just come in for one episode and direct that episode. It's more of the writer's medium, because they set what the show is from beginning to first episode to last, So there's a showrunner in TV, and so they really run the ship, steer the ship.
I've heard that term before.
And they're like an executive producer, but basically they're the captain. So that for TV and film, that's kind of how it goes. But at least for like creative and narrative choices, I would say like in TV, writers and the showrunner, because they work closely together. And then on film, because once you write a film, you may never have anything to do with that film again. It goes to the director and the producers, and then they make it. So that's a director.
How does the structure work in terms of pulling all the pieces together to make it happen? Is it like the production house says, we want to make another movie, we pick the director, we pick the producer, make it happen? Or is it kind of different depending?
It all depends on who you are, like, and what you've done. Like me being the director of this studio, I get to hire a lot of the cinematographers and the editors and stuff like that. But we also have producers who are kind of in charge of the shoot, like their own. Like I'll have a producer who works with Seagram's, and then they'll come to me and say, "Hey, Seagram's wants to make this spot." So I still have to get approval from that producer on who's going to shoot it, on who's going to edit it. But I will pitch her my friends, who I know are good for it.
For sure.
And it's the same thing in TV and film, like if you're running the show, then you bring in, and it depends on how much power you have, like, I'm sure nobody tells like Tarantino or whatever who to use. And did I cut out there at all? Because you guys froze.
That's okay.
Okay,
yeah,
cool. Well, so I was just saying that like it's the same thing in TV and film. Like if you're Tarantino or if you're like J.J. Abrams or like one of these guys who runs their whole life and nobody can tell what to do, then you pick whoever you want to do whatever you want,
Okay.
But if you're like a new guy, then you're gonna be if I were to write a TV show and a studio or network wanted to make it, they would assign me a showrunner. They would say, but this person's going to run your show because you have no idea how to run a TV show.
What you're doing.
And that's true. Yeah. But yeah, so it's just a different like level of power. What level of power you have, you can choose.
Okay.
Hey, Mike. So
yep.
I'm you, but 18. And
I was going to ask this question.
Yeah, okay.
I know you're going with this.
I'm you, but 18, and I have to give myself all of the knowledge that I have now. What are the 3 pieces of information that you would give yourself if you could?
I mean, this is something that like I've read for decades in books about writing and directing or like wanting to be in TV and film. You have to really want it. Like if there's anything else you can do, then it's too easy to quit this and go do that. So you're going to run into a million different things that are going to make you want to quit. Cause I'm sure for some people get lucky and it's easy, but for most people it's not easy. It's a lot of work. And for directors too, I have a friend who's a director she's like, I can make 40 grand in 1 month and then not work. And then I won't find work for 6 months and I get scared to death,
Yeah, for sure.
Cause like 40 grand in a month is awesome. But if you don't work again that year, 40 grand for the year is not that awesome. If you live in Austin or New York or LA, so yeah, that's one. If, yeah, you're going to want to quit.
Live there?
Plenty of things.
Do you have to live there to be successful?
Not if you're established enough. I mean, if you're going to work in the industry,
yeah.
Plenty of people like influencers live all over the world, and I don't mean just like influencers, but like people who are making great TikTok content and Instagram content. Like I follow people who are like making short films on there, and I don't know where they live. But you can live anywhere to do that, and you might get the attention. If your goal is to work in this industry, you should move to LA or New York, because you're just wasting time.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
if you're not in those places.
Interesting. Yeah. Because we had JP.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's not Minot. It's
Manu.
Manu. Thank you. He was the Curtis the Caveman. In Phil of the Future, he was in an episode of Community. Cusco.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I saw. Yeah. I saw that.
And he mentioned how in his world it's changing to where you don't necessarily have to be in LA to be an actor. Well,
and through COVID, that was probably the case too, because a lot of people, and it might still be the case, because I listened to a lot of podcasts with the actors and stuff, and. Because of COVID, they were doing a lot of like taped auditions.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And even my friends too, who are like small time, like just working actors who do commercials and stuff. They were doing, it was all taped auditions through COVID. And so now a lot of actors hate that they're still doing that, because it's one thing to tape an audition, but it's another thing to be in the room with the casting agent and get a note and then try it a different way.
He said that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I just hear a lot of actors say. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how much that's going to change, but because it's easier for casting directors to do that. But yeah, he's already got some notoriety. Again, like, I'm not saying it's impossible to do from other places, but you're wasting time if you're not established yet. you may make it anywhere in the country, but if you're gonna make it, you'll make it faster, I would think, from LA or New York. That makes sense. You know? And then there's also like for me, if I'm not working here in New York, I can just see what my friends are up to, and if they need a PA, you know, it's going to be a much lower level than what I do.
What's a PA?
It's going to be lower pay than what I get. Production assistant.
Or production assistant, yeah.
Or no, production assistant, which is like the lowest entry level job on a set.
Okay.
And so like you can do anything from, you know, just be running errands, getting coffee, but also like if it's 5 people on the crew, you could be setting up lights, you could be helping the cinematographer. But I'll do it because it's work, and you know I need money and I, you know, want to be on a set. You meet people who will hire you for another shoot, you know. So like if you're not in a place where shoots are happening all the time, then you don't have that luxury. Like I'm constantly posting on Facebook groups about I need a production assistant, I need an editor, I need a cinematographer. All these people with amazing resumes, like so far out of my league typically, are sending me their resumes because like we all need to work.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah.
For sure.
And so like if you're in a place like this, like you'll have more opportunities to work and you'll meet people, which is what, like you said, it's all about networking, you know, like they'll ask you to be on their short film or they'll ask you to be on their film or whatever.
Okay. Before you ask, we got 10 minutes left, and he had 2 other points to his last question you asked him.
Tell an 18-year-old. All right. So yeah, it's going to be hard. You might want to quit. I would say you keep learning. Like I always go back to like how much we all hated homework, but at least in this industry, if you want to, and I would think it's the same for any industry, if you want to keep progressing and moving up, you're always going to have homework. And then this industry, like the media creative industry, you got to know how to use TikTok. You got to know, you know, what digital marketing is. You got to know or even if you just want to, you know, work in production, you should know how to edit because you're going to have to talk to your editors and you don't want to sound like an idiot because you don't know what a transition is or you don't know what a certain thing is.
Yeah, for sure.
So like learn editing, learn cinematography, at least the terminology and stuff, so you can communicate to these people. Because if you're a director and you don't know like what kind of lens would be the best lens to use here, plenty of directors don't know that stuff. You just hire a great director of photography, but it helps so much. And you can do so much more on your own. You can get so much farther the more that you know. So you're going to have to keep doing homework, and you should if you want to progress. And then the third thing is also something very new to me that I had such a struggle with is like work-life balance, man. Like nothing is so important. Nothing is so important that like, dude, the best thing that's ever happened to me in my life is my daughter. Like I never in my life imagined the level of happiness that she gives me being possible. And for through my 20s and 30s, it was all, I need to be a writer. I need to make films. I need to make TV. I'm not there yet. I'm depressed. I'm anxious because I'm not there yet. I'm like, you know, had some really dark mental health days in my 20s and 30s. And, you know, it's because I thought life had to be one thing and it doesn't. Like, I mean, I always say like, even working at Comedy Central and digital media didn't exist when I was in high school. So like, how would I always wanted to work in TV and film. I always want to win an Emmy and Oscar, but how would I have known in high school I'm going to win an Emmy in digital media when it didn't exist, you know? So like, don't worry so much about like your life being on track because you don't even fucking know what that track is or what roads are going to even develop out of nowhere. You know, like it's insane. Like you can't plan life and you should not beat yourself up if it's not going a certain way at that moment because you don't even know what's going to exist next year
for sure
that you might be the right person for, you know.
High school me thought I was going to be managing some of the biggest bands in the country. Didn't realize it was going to be
I thought I was
an engineering track and doing a podcast about entertainment, which I prefer so much more.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, some people like 20 years ago, nobody thought, like 20 years ago, Joe Rogan didn't know he was going to be Joe Rogan with his podcast because there weren't podcasts, you know? Like,
yeah.
So, like, yeah,
it helps when you're a pioneer in it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but even not, like, think of like the people who have blown up in podcasts, not being the 1,000th person who started a podcast or 50,000th person who started a podcast, you know?
Yeah.
Sword and Scale is one of my favorite podcasts, even though their guy who runs it is a piece of shit, absolute pile of shit.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, who would have thought that murder podcast would be like the thing? Like freaking nuts. You touch the basis that I always try to touch, and that is work-life balance. What is it like being a parent? And you answered that question. Thank you for sharing that, because like I'm there with you. I went through depression and anxiety and wanting to jump off bridges because you're just like, I'm not successful. And then it's like, I would have never seen my children's eyes, and that's fucking crazy to me.
Mike,
I know, man. Yeah, it's insane.
I appreciate you coming on, man. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I also want to let you know that I appreciate you touching on some of these sensitive subjects like depression, anxiety, especially in the creative world. I think that's something that a lot of people don't address, and it's a big problem in the creative industry, and most people don't recognize that. You know, they don't know that it's there. They see a actor on the TV screen and they say, this guy has the best life. Robin Williams. But you may not understand what's going on behind the scenes. And even for the people who bring these movies to you, you know, you don't pay attention to that kind of stuff. There's so much that goes on in somebody's mind that just needs to be addressed. And I appreciate that you have brought that forward.
And 8-9 years ago, I was in my worst of it, you know, but what put me like in a such better place is talking about it and being able to, because when you do talk about it, you do find out other people have gone through it too. So it's nothing to be like ashamed of. No, thank you guys for having me, man. This is great. I really appreciate it.